Hello and welcome to Film Slam Stream's post-film conversation for Payasam and other careful processes. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm an instructor of film, media arts, and communications, as well as moderator for this conversation. We are very pleased to be joined by the director of Payasam and other careful processes, Akshay Ravi. Comes from Naperville, Illinois. He's a director, producer, writer, and he is a graduate of USC School of Cinematic Arts in 2020. He grew up writing and performing in theater, and he has a passion for crafting narratives that represents underrepresented voices. He's also an advocate of social good, and hopefully he likes to make you laugh as well too. He has worked on all aspects of film production, such as in films that have appeared in the Palm Springs International Film Festival, LA Shorts, and of course here at the Cleveland International Film Festival. Hello, Akshay, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you. This is a really delightful, fun film, and I guess an insight into people who aren't familiar with the culture as to what can really go on inside of a family dynamics. So, is this based on a true story that happened with your family or someone else that you know?
No, it's not based on a true story, but all the characters are inspired by family dynamics that I have in my real life. And though my parents are a lot more open-minded than the parents in the film, I wanted to kind of capture what those family dynamics are and the kinds of small sacrifices that immigrant parents make for their children when they move to the States.
I see. So, this is something that could happen in many families.
And yes, it can happen. I've received feedback from people I know who have told me that something very similar has happened to them. It's super relatable to them. It just hasn't happened to me.
Okay, so in writing this film, which is why I must say really nicely written and so forth, um, uh, did you do a lot of research and development, or is this came from just interacting with people while growing up?
It really just came from like my heart, and a lot of the details that take up the screen come from my personal experience. In a lot of Indian cultures and families, the way certain practices happen can vary so much between each family, and between each different area in India. So I really wanted to capture the way my own family runs practice or celebrates Diwali and does this kind of stuff. And I found that the conflict of bringing in someone who doesn't necessarily fit into that mold can really help bring out the internet generational conflict between the parents and the kid.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So, how long did it take for you to from writing the film to actually edit the film? What was that time length like?
It was it was a much longer timeline than anticipated. I started writing versions of the film in 2018 when I was still a junior in at USC. And I was gonna shoot it while I was there, and I chose not to shoot it while I was there. And then after college, I graduated in 2020 in the middle of the COVID pandemic. That's when I started revisiting the film as a project that I might be interested in shooting. The first time we were supposed to shoot it in November 2021, I actually got COVID right before we hopped on set. So we had to cancel the shoot. And then we only ended up filming it in September 2022, and editing it around November 2022. So from beginning to end, it took about 4 years. But realistically, if we map out the actual time frame we spent working on it, is maybe more of like a year or so from conception to ideation or to execution.
Right. Let's look at the actual shoot itself. How long did it take and where did you find your location?
It was a 3-day shoot in Los Angeles, in the Arcadia neighborhood of Los Angeles. We had a family friend of one of our producers who was willing to lend us their home. So we just ended up shooting there.
Okay, great. Did you have to do a lot of set design or was the house pretty much ready?
We had to do a lot of set design to personalize it to what we wanted for the film, but there were many aspects of the house that we kind of kept up. A lot of like the wall decorations that we see in the background and stuff are from the family that lived there. A lot of the furniture is from the family that lived there. And of course, we added our own flair, a lot of stuff from my house that we brought from Illinois to Los Angeles to decorate the space. And the food is all made fresh on set. So um, a lot of stuff that we brought in, but definitely a lot that we were able to use because the space was so lived in already.
Wow, that's great. That's really great, and kudos to the people for letting you use the house. Cast. Let's talk about the casting. Tell us about the cast. How did you find your cast members?
Sure. Well, the main the person who plays the main character, his name is Suraj Partha. He and I went to college together. He has acted in a bunch of films and like large scale TV shows like Modern Family. He was in Master of None. He played the younger Aziz Ansari in the Thanksgiving episode. He was in Ender's Game. And he was someone that I met in college who was just eager to, have fun on set. He comes from the exact same cultural background that I do in terms of where we're from in India. And so I thought he was a natural fit. And basically we assembled a cast around him and the parents. The parents, I ended up we did a wide search of a lot of parents, and we never really found the perfect professional actors for the parents role. The language was super important to me, like understanding that dynamic, that headspace was really important to me. And on a whim, we ended up actually auditioning my own parents, and they ended up just doing so well and having such a great dynamic with Suraj that we just stuck with them. And then the other three roles were all auditioned and cast based on their dynamic with my parents and how we felt that they would work um, as a team. So it was really cool to see the whole cast of younger actors come in around my parents as the older actors, who my parents are never have never acted, and all of the younger actors are professional actors. So it was a really cool experience getting to kind of use non-actors and build a cast around non-actors for the first time in my working career.
That's great. Your parents did a fabulous job, and you know it, and they know it too, I'm sure. With that, did it you how did you convince your parents, or were they eager to participate just to help? I have to help out we have to help out our son. Or tell us a little bit about that convincing process when you approached them. Did you give them the script? I want to know.
My parents have always been artists at heart. So they do a lot of like fun, like small Indian community stuff here and there. They listen to a lot of music. And I think when they got the chance to perform for the first time, they were honestly a little more excited than I was to do it. My dad was a very easy convincing, and my mom was um, she was like, "Hey, you're gonna need to work with me a lot, but I'll do it if you want me to." And I could tell that they were very excited about the chance to try something that they hadn't tried before. So it was actually quite easy, surprisingly.
Now, were your parents really acting, or were they really playing themselves with their characters?
There were definitely elements of the characters where that are inspired by my parents, but there's enough different in how the characters were written and what was needed on screen that they were really acting. They were really trying their hardest to bring their A game and be professional on set. And I had kind of expressed to them like when we're on set, I'm the director, you guys are the actors. I'm not your son on set. And they really respected that and treated it professionally and took notes and went along with the process how I'd expect any other actor to. And it was just a really easy, they made it really easy for me because they bought into what we were trying to do.
Yeah, that they did, because when you work with someone who is not a trained actor, they tend to overact
Right.
and so forth, but it just came off so fluid with that. That's really great. What about the response to the film? The cast and crew saw it, your parents. Tell us about their response and the greater responses at the festivals.
It's been a really nice to see people react to the film. Obviously a lot of, closer family and friends who have seen it are like they can't help but smile when they see my parents on screen like that. And they see a dynamic that is so similar to my dynamic with my parents. But I feel like a lot of other people have really resonated with this theme of just intergenerationally trying to understand each other and trying to just have a moment of connection with the people that we are around. Um, that was one of my intentions with the film, is to really emphasize this point of connection between these two generations who sometimes find it easier to not talk about things than to actually just confront, the differences in their beliefs. And I think especially one wonderful piece of feedback that I've received has been on um the acting of the parents, which has been like, that's just wonderfully rejuvenating for me to hear such good compliments from my parents, but also like how realistic the family dynamic feels and how lived in like the group feels as a family. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges for me on set, and what I've struggled with on any film, is sometimes the family dynamics could feel a little ingenuine or forced. And something about the way we worked on set and something about my parents' own like parental natures really made the familial dynamic easy to capture on set. And so like that has been one really great reception, or one really great piece of feedback that I've received in its reception. And people seem to be really vibing with the messaging of just trying to understand each other, trying to build cross generational appreciation, and trying to give credence to a generation of immigrants who just make so many sacrifices in such small ways for their kids to adapt to a new style of life.
Interesting. I'm sorry to keep circling back to your parents, but have they caught the acting bug? Are they asking to be in your other projects, or are you trying to connect it with other projects?
My dad definitely is very eager to see if he can get more acting roles. He was on a high after the film. He was very much like, yeah, I think I want to see if I could pursue acting. My mom, not much so. I think she had her fit.
Okay, well, great, great. And speaking about future projects, what's next for you? Are you working on anything now that we can see in the near future?
Yeah, I'm working on a short film that's shooting next month. About it's a story about male loneliness and about a boy who kind of stark difference from this film, but it's about a boy who kind of is forced to confront his the idea of feeling over the course of a conversation with a therapist. Very small scale, but intended to be kind of like this comedy drama, kind of making fun of toxic masculinity, but just ruminating on this idea of male loneliness and what can actually give men um, fulfillment in life. So that's the next project that I'm working on. And a longer term project that I'm working on is I'm writing my first feature that is just very early in development and still in the writing phases, but I'm hoping that that will be ready to start making moves out there in the next year or so.
Great. This is just a suggestion, you know, to take it, but it would be nice to have your parents in your upcoming projects, not acting if that doesn't fit, but as an extra or even a photograph in the background on a wall or on a table, something like that.
Oh yeah, they've already told me that if I ever need them again, I'll have to definitely reach out to them.
I see. For this film, is there anything you wish you had have done differently with this film, or you just yeah thought it everything just worked out well?
Um, I think that there are many ways in which the execution of this film feels very what's the word? Feels very 2018, very stuck in the original version of it that I had written. And because so much time had passed between when I first wrote it and when we executed it, so much of my personal taste also evolved. And so I think one wish that I've always had was that I made it a little bit later, or I ideated it a little bit later, because I think it would be very different if I ideated it and wrote it in 2023 versus ideating it in 2018. So it's just very interesting how long these films sometimes take to get made and how quickly they can get outdated in the filmmaker's own mind. Like it just took so long that I grew a lot as a person between the ages of 21 and 24 when the film was finally completed. That naturally it was very different. And or naturally I was very different as a person between those ages. So that is one thing that I think has always been, on my mind as I've rewatched the film over and over again about my own personal taste. But based on who I was at the time that I made it, I was very proud to have been able to accomplish what I accomplished.
That's interesting. Really interesting. A nice self-analysis with that. To uh, do you so you don't have any plans to maybe turning this into a feature, making a webisode at all, or this film is just done?
There was an idea at one point to continue the story in a webisode style or a kind of format. But I think the reason I kind of left that behind is because the story feels complete in its current version. It doesn't feel like it feels like we reached the moment of connection with the mom and um the son's girlfriend, and more importantly we reached the moment of connection with the mom and the son, and it didn't feel like what happens next was as important as reaching that moment of connection. So it's always been on the back of my mind to potentially try to expand the story a little bit, but I've been eager to jump to other projects in the meantime.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Akshay Ravi, director of Payasam and other careful processes. Thank you so much for joining us today. I wish you all the best with your future films. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
And thank you for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. For more information about our upcoming events, please visit us at clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.